Hey there, guys. Welcome back to the Rogues Guild. It's been a while. It's been a couple weeks. I felt like every time I wanted to get out there and I wanted to do this video, something else would happen in the community, and I'm like, oh man, I want to talk about that too. So it just kind of kept getting pushed off and off and off. But hey, I'm here. We got a lot of stuff to cover. So first thing I want to cover: if you are unaware of Rudy from Alpha Investments, he does a YouTube channel for MTG Finance. He's got a huge following. He has been talking directly with the Force of Will company. He released a video last week where he's hyped up like 10 questions he asked, in-depth stuff that he can't get out of Magic, but he can now get out of Force of Will. So it was actually amazing to see him. He was super hyped about it, very into it. And so big takeaways that we're going to get from this. Rudy is back into Force of Will. This is fantastic for us. At the end of the day, he's a big name YouTuber. He's got a lot of followers, 10,000 plus views on all of his videos, and they're specifically from the Magic community. So Force of Will and Magic have a lot of similarities in the game. Personally, I came from Magic. I completely gave up Magic to pursue Force of Will because I feel like Force of Will is a better game. So having talking Force of Will, opening product, and all that stuff in front of that kind of crowd is going to be fantastic advertising for us going forward. Two, he also covers the finance side of things. So one of the things that he ended up asking was he asked a lot about reprints, like whether or not that was a thing. And Jeff basically said, yeah, he doesn't. If he sees cards go over $20, he starts cringing. I'm okay with that at the end of the day, because he ended up stating exactly kind of what we're doing here. And what he said was that basically this game should be cheap to play but expensive to bling. Okay, and that's kind of what we do here. So that was interesting. He's got another follow-up video coming up. We'll see what comes out of that, but at the end of the day, like, that's good advertisement for us, so yay. Number two, we talked a little bit about the distribution model, which is something that we knew as Force of Will players, because we deal with this struggle every day. We go to the store and we're like, hey, we want a box, and they get online and they're like, distribution, do you got a box? Distribution's like, no, we don't got a box, and the store goes, hey, sorry, I can't get it, and then we walk away. So what Jeff ended up saying was that they won't do more print runs unless distribution says, hey, we want your boxes, right? And so like that quota is never filled to get that second print run going. And he even mentioned before that he actually kind of got slapped for it a little bit on TSW when he forced that to get reprinted, right, because of all the mistakes and everything, that he ended up taking a bullet for that. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and it's a little frustrating because I got a feeling that somebody's just not communicating. Like we go there, right, and we're like, hey, I want a box. They're like, hey, do you have a box? They're like, no, right? I don't believe that any official orders are being put in at that point. Like, nobody, like, the store isn't just like, yeah, okay, well, when you get one, put it in for me. And then distribution's like, okay, we'll put that one on the one demand list. I got a feeling it's just all kind of like wash your hands of it. It's like, yeah, I don't have it, and that's it right now. So we're just like, all this demand is just kind of going under the radar, in my opinion. I think that's what's happening. Or distribution just doesn't want to take on the risk of a second print run at the end of the day, like, because of the history. Like, and I feel like those are the kind of gaps that we're dealing with right now. So that was interesting. And so with that, he ended up stating that the print runs obviously are a lot lower in the Reiya Cluster and in New Valhalla. So he brought up sealed investments. So I kind of want to talk just a little bit about that. At the end of the day, I do not believe in sealed investments right now. What I'm going to do here on this channel, and what I'm going to talk to you guys about when it comes to the finance part of things, it's not so much about the long-term investments. What we're dealing with is we're talking about short-term return of capital. Okay? So totally big differences there. In my opinion, what's going to end up happening is people are going to, that follow Rudy, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this actually makes sense. That's pretty cool. There's two things that I wanted to kind of cover about the Reiya Cluster. For those of you that aren't aware, the Reiya Cluster had a very low power level. Okay? So at the end of the day, when we rotate out of standard or New Frontiers as we call it in this game. When we rotate out of that, I do not believe that the Reiya Cluster will carry value into Wanderer. At the end of the day, I do not believe that it is on the same level that we ended up getting in the Alice Cluster, in the Lapis Cluster. So if they're not playable in the Eternal formats, I cannot see them maintaining value going forward, even with the low print runs, at the end of the day. So I think right now your best bet is to sell that cluster, the Reiya Cluster, right now while it's in standard. Get your high prices on it and walk out. At the end of the day, Time Spinning Witch, some of the most expensive stuff in Time Spinning Witch is like our dual stones. We have the Speaking Stone, we have the Null Stone. They're 4-ofs in just about every deck that we need right now because they are the only dual stone option that we have at this point, right? So if you're running a black deck, there is no downside to running Null Darkness Stone. That's just the way it works, right? So like you run it and you can splash red. Going forward into the Eternal format, you wouldn't run that over a Scorching Bales, right? It is just, that is a free black-red that you can have it all the time with no consequences, right? So you would obviously run that over the other, unless you're trying to ping yourself for like a Majin Dark Elf. But at the end of the day, the versatility on a Scorched Bales is a lot more than a Null Magic Stone in the grand scheme of all cards printed, right? So like I don't see Null Magic Stone carrying value after it rotates. Speaking Stone is kind of the same way. It is only a green stone that functions in black when you get when you're playing with stories. Okay, I don't know how many stories are going to be relevant going forward into the Eternal format, especially with Scheherazade gone. Also, how important is that barrier mechanic? At the end of the day, like when you go back to the Eternal formats, there was a lot of stuff in there that called out Windstone specifics. Okay, there was a lot of broken stuff that we were able to do with that. Obviously, we just banned Gretel, so like that one's gone. But there's still instances where you need that Windstone to be printed on your Special Magic Stone, right? And Speaking Stone doesn't have that. So again, I just feel like these cards in the Eternal format are not going to carry the value that they do right now. So just something to keep your mind on when you're going forward. Don't sit on these and expect that like because of this low print run that they're going to maintain value for as long as they do, because they won't. At the end of the day, sell them now because we're playing with them now and they're needed now. They are super important now, and this is a 9-month window. That's it. That's all you got. Okay. So, other news that came out, the ban list. The ban list came out and we lost Distortion of Time and we lost Spirit Stone. This is very interesting. I was anticipating the ban list for a really long time because I didn't exactly know where Jeff was going to go with it. Up until this point, he has only banned like the big obvious like tier zeros, okay? And everything else, like the how fun is it to play with, how does it feel to the casual player, all that stuff's been put to the side, right? It's just been, I ban the broken stuff, okay? And there were numbers to back it up, and that was always his big thing. He's like, I need numbers to back bans, okay? So, going into this one, I did not see Distortion of Time getting banned. Not at all. The only person that won an event with it was Ryan Miles, and he topped with it. The rest of them that tried to do it in Orlando all got beat out by Keurig. So, I don't see the numbers to back it, right? So, going forward, this is actually going to be very interesting because we now know that Jeff will do it more, not just on the numbers, but also these other variables that have been talked about for a while. So that's a little sketchy going forward. At the end of the day, I liked having there has to be numbers to back it or else I'm not going to touch it. That made everything a lot more predictable. Now you're just going to have to keep your ear to the concrete, because you got to listen to the community. You got to figure out what the general feel of cards are, and then kind of make your own judgments from that. It's not straightforward. So in the future, just be aware of that. going forward, if you're ever sitting on anything that has a lot of value, just kind of reevaluate where it's at. Is it potentially coming up on a ban hammer? So yeah, on outside of finance though, I did like both of those bans. We're gonna see the rise of a lot of cards, so the general market will increase off of that, because there's gonna be a lot of distribution going forward here in the meta, before we settle in on a couple of amazing decks, right? So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Just going forward, when we come to ban list time, just start thinking about it. What kind of stuff could really get hit, community opinion, stuff like that. All right. So last thing that I wanted to cover that I talked about last week was that we had all received our willpower rewards, right? And so one of the big things that I want to do on this channel is I want to encourage the viewer to be able to sell their own cards, right? And to kind of really give them the power to kind of run their own little small business to offset, some of the expenses that come with this game. So I wanted to go over the costs that happen while I'm shipping cards and kind of how I go about it. So what I do is I have kind of a tier system. If I'm shipping anything, so I sell on TCG Player only when it comes to cards. I'll go to the Forcible Marketplace when I'm selling playmats or stuff along those lines, and I'll buy bulk collections off the Forcible Marketplace. But at the end of the day, all my card transactions go through TCG Player. So TCG Player has a 12.75% variable cost of selling on there. So like basically of your sale, if you sell $5 worth of cards, they're going to take 12.75% of that as their cut for putting in all the work on the website and the transactions and all of that. So that is the variable cost on all of your stuff. It's 12.75%. Everything after that is what we call fixed costs. Okay, so TCG Player has a fixed cost of 30 cents. Okay, so this is the credit card transaction. It's 30 cents no matter what. It doesn't matter how big the order is, 30 cents all day. Then you get into your shipping costs. Okay, so from the $2 minimum all the way up to $19.99, before we hit that $20 mark, I will ship everything in a white envelope. And from there, what I use is these things called Card Savers #1. Okay, so what I found was early, while I was selling cards, I would actually pay the 21-cent upcharge, and I would sell everything non-machinable, right? So this was where I felt the most comfortable. I would tape them to cardboard, put them in the penny sleeves, decrease my cost that way, but up the cost of shipping by 21 cents, right? What I ended up finding is when I bought a card online, somebody shipped it to me in this, and I just looked at it and I was like, Card Saver #1, this is actually really nice. It's semi-rigid. Unlike a top loader. Top loaders are a lot more rigid, so semi-rigid. So I'm not worried about this getting flagged by the UPS or by the postage service being like, no, I can't put this through my machine, trying to send it back to me to give more money to make it non-machinable, right? I've never had an issue. If I put the cards in this, it goes smooth, very smooth. So what I was able to do was I was able to drop the cost of the 21-cent upcharge for non-machinable to 8 cents per one of these, right? So I netted 15 cents on all my orders. That might not sound like a lot, but like when we're talking about fixed costs, if you can decrease your fixed cost even by like pennies, it ends up adding up in the end, right? So then after that, we just ship everything with forever stamps. We put penny sleeves into this, load it into the envelope. For the envelopes, I like to buy in bulk, 500 or so at a time, and I like to use the security inside. What ends up happening is when you print your packaging slips on TCG Player, it shows the prices on them now, which was awesome. But in the non-security envelopes, you can actually see it through. So at the end of the day, I don't like anybody looking at my envelope and being like, oh, there's something of money in here, right? I just rather keep it anonymous, make it look like a love letter, write some hearts on there and stuff. So what I do is if it's 6 cards or less, it only requires the 1 stamp. Stamps are currently 50 cents. They're going to go up to 55 here end of January. So if you got to go out and get your stamps right now, do it at the 50 cent cost before you got to pay the upcharge. If at any chance I have to go 7 cards or more, and we didn't cross that $20 threshold, then what'll end up happening is I'll have to use like 2 of the card saver ones, and that'll up my weight on the envelope to over an ounce. If it goes over an ounce, you got to put another 21 stamp on there. They have additional ounce stamps. It's no issue there at all. But with that being said, that is why I have all of my cards listed with a minimum of 34 cents. Okay, I don't chase a bottom lower than 34 cents. If the card never sells and it stays on there at 34 cents, I don't care. What this does is this makes it so that the minimum purchase order, if somebody buys only 34-cent cards from me, there's still going to be 6 cards over $2, and I won't have to put the extra 21-cent stamp on it, because when we're at the like $2 minimum range, we're talking like only 48% return. So like I'm taking in less than $1 on that order. So like we try to keep that in mind going forward. It's like if I'd have had it at 33 cents, then that would have been 7 cards, and I'd have to put the 21 cent to get the minimum. So this is just kind of stuff I've done going forward, and that's why when you'll see my stuff online, it's never less than 34 cents. If you can get it less than that, be my guest. Plus, also what that does is that gives options for when they're trying to buy cards that are like $1.75 or something. They need 1 card to get it above the $2 minimum, right? And so at the end of the day, they will sell. And if they don't, I'll end up throwing it on like a bulk list something end of the year when I try to relieve some of my inventory. So that's how I handle that going forward. Anything over $20 gets tracking and gets put in what we call a number 000 bubble mailer. Okay, I bought these bulk on Amazon like 2 years ago. Bought like 250 of them, and I still have like 200 of them. So like always buy in bulk if you can, decrease your overhead costs, and then use PayPal. So PayPal has a shipping feature that allows you to print labels from your office, right, or from your printer at home. When you use that feature, you can pair your PayPal directly to your bank accounts, right, and you can print your own labels, and they are significantly cheaper going this route than going through like a post office or something. So like I can ship less than 3 ounces in this with tracking for $2.66 all the time. Print it myself, tape it to the front, throw it in the mail. It's all good, right? So then if at any time an order goes over 50, what I'll do is I'll add in PayPal you can add a signature tracking to it, so no issues there. And that's just kind of what I do to protect myself. I've developed this over the years as kind of something that I feel safe with. In the beginning, when I was using the non-machinable, I didn't have a lot of experience in the market, and so it scared me, the potential that like this stuff could be ruined in the paper machine. As I've sold and as I've received, I've gotten more and more successful orders through the machine, and so I've become more and more comfortable. At the end of the day, what you got to do is you got to establish what you're comfortable with as risk versus reward. You know, like how much are you going to decrease the cost at risk of potentially losing an order and pissing off a customer. You know, it's what we do in business all the time. So just evaluate your own situations, figure out what you're comfortable with. If you got to start with a higher fixed cost, do it. Just sell more expensive cards going forward. So with that, I will close on 2 things. Last video, I informed you guys of the uncommons and specifically the machines that I was selling at a high cost. Well, they all sold for what I was saying. So the Castle Skyround, that sold at a high cost. Vivian sold very easily, all 3. That card is going to be absolutely bonkers going forward. My Merlin, it wasn't a stock out, but what ended up happening is more sellers came online, so there's like 3 or 4 of us now, and we're chasing a bottom. I think it's down to $15, maybe 13 or so. Still hasn't sold, And you know, that's the way it goes. If the demand isn't there by the time the supply restarts, then we just start chasing a bottom. Also, Kotaro, our little ninja guy, he sold at the high price of, I think, $6 each. So predictions were right on all three of those. So going into this new set, what I need to let you know is I watched Jeremy's box opening, and it looks like it's going to be damn near the exact same distribution as we had on the last one. The next finance video I do will be after I've received my 3 boxes. I'll open them up and I'll let everybody know kind of where I'm at on the distribution. But my initial assessment is that you need to keep your master runes, specifically Brunhilde's and Hanzo's. At the end of the day, when we talk about card prices going forward, is it going to be played as a 4 of? If it's going to be played as a 4 of, that automatically increases the cost because demand is going to be higher. So when you're evaluating these master runes, only Brunhilde's and Hanzo's are going to be a 4 of in the decks. Lucifer's is, I think, too high of a cost to be a 4 of. It might be a 2 of, maybe a 3, but it's not going to carry the same as Brunhilde and Hanzo. And then, yeah, Arthur's, again, after evaluation on Arthur's, it feels more like a win more. I don't think you need a 4 of that card. You might throw 1 into your rune deck if you're going to play Arthur with your machines. So I don't feel it's going to carry the most. And then also Fuji's like, Fuji sucks. So that card's not going to carry anything. I'm sorry, Fuji. I wanted the dragons. I really did. I wanted the dragons to be good. But they're just not there. They're not there. So if the distribution's the same, you can expect those cards to kind of carry the same value as like a Life-Severing Blade is right now in New Valhalla. So I wouldn't ever sell the base rarity less than $10. And those full arts, they're at least 20 more bucks. So keep an eye on it. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I appreciate talking to you guys about this stuff, and we'll see you in about a week when the set releases.